Hello, my name is Kirioth, and I'm afraid today's video is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, and probably a little bit quieter than usual, because for some reason, Grandfather Nurgle has decided to spread his gifts not just to my daughter, but now to me as well. I've caught whatever she's had for the last week, and now my voice is wrecked, my throat is wrecked, and my chest is wrecked as well. I couldn't record at all yesterday, I'm just completely done in. So, I thought rather than do nothing again today, because I don't like putting out a video, I'm going to try and make up for the fact that we missed yesterday at some point later on in the week. I thought instead I would get some feedback from you guys. I want a bit of help with something. So, as I've mentioned before, thanks to you guys and thanks to your suggestions for which Xenos army I should start, I'm going to start collecting Imperial Guard. Because that's just how my brain works. I know, I can't help it, I do try, but sometimes I just go off my face and I'm like, yes, someone's mentioned that, it's not what I was looking for, but I absolutely want that now. I've had a few ideas as to what theme I would like my Imperial Guard army to be, and I'll be honest, the idea of having an army that is not converted or kit bashed from here to Oblivion and back just doesn't sit well with me. I like my forces to be, if not unique, then at least something that I can look at and go, yes, that is mine. I worked hard on that, I tried to make it different. You know, I spent time in making every unit exactly what I'd like it to be. The Imperial Guard army is going to be absolutely no different to this. It needs to be something special, it needs to be something maybe not unique, but something that I can say, yeah, I built that and I made it my own. There's a few options that I've thought of, there's a few things that I've had ideas for in terms of what the Imperial Guard army could look like, what sort of theme it could have, and I'm not at a stumbling block, but I thought I would put it to you guys as to what you think might be the most sort of, I guess, the most unique, the most different, the most interesting concept for an Imperial Guard army that is going to have a lot of stuff done to it in terms to make it, you know, look a little bit special. So, the first theme, the obvious theme, is kind of World War II-ish-esque, if you want to put it up. Ish-esque? What does that mean? Sort of World War II-like. The only thing I don't like about that idea is that we already have the Death Corps of Krieg, and the Death Corps of Krieg have fantastic models, and I could just get Death Corps. It would mean that it would take about 20 years to finish the army off because they're so damn expensive, but given how good those models are, would conversions stack up, and would I really end up with something completely different? Because Death Corps, even though they are expensive, they are also popular. I mean, I've been looking around and there's a few things that I like the look of that could make a Death Corps style army, but maybe it looks a little bit more modern, maybe a little bit more advanced in terms of sort of old looking but also futuristic at the same time, if that makes any sense. These bits are from Victoria Miniatures, the ones that I've been looking at specifically in terms of doing a sort of almost World War II but also slightly futuristic army. So we have the Custodian heads, which I like the combination of kind of trench style helmets but sort of more modern futuristic kind of gas mask and eye lenses, and then of course great coat legs, because if you're going to do World War II you've kind of got to have great coat legs. That's sort of one, not alternative to Death Corps, but a slightly different take on that kind of theme. The only problem is that Victoria Miniatures are not massively expensive, but it's a bit more expensive than buying something that's produced in my country, which is the UK, because Victoria Miniatures, I believe, is Australia, and that is reflected in the price. So it's a little bit pricey in a way. I'm not entirely sure how much shipping is, but to be honest, this is a long-term project, so in a way that doesn't really matter that much. But is it different enough? That's the question. On a very similar note, is the stuff from Anvil Industries, which I've had plenty of stuff off them. They do very, very good work. I really like them. And, you know, I mean, I guess these guys are sort of halfway between Death Corps and Steel Legion in a way. So those heads, again, they're kind of older, but also slightly futuristic. And, of course, the traditional great coat legs, which are kind of, well, they're remarkably similar, really, those. But then again, what can you really do with great coats beyond that? Kind of the Death Corps kind of nailed it, haven't they? And everything looks kind of similar, but only because all great coat legs look kind of similar no matter what you do. So that's the first thought. A kind of World War II theme, World War II style, or at least kind of older feel to the army while still being a little bit futuristic. The other thing that I thought about was maybe like an elite force of some kind. So if we think about Militarum Tempestus, but like almost like an army-wide theme of that kind of specialist forces type deal. The only problem that I've got with that is that while there are some kind of cool looking things that would work for that, like these, again from Anvil Industry, I mean, I really like the look of them, and with some legs to go with them, you could get that nice elite force feel. My only problem is I don't know what I'd do with vehicles. I don't think there's a huge amount you can do to a Leman Russ to make it look like an elite forces vehicle, if I'm absolutely honest with you. Chimera can be a little bit easier to work with, I think, but the Leman Russ is very boxy, it's very chunky, and it looks mass-produced. No matter how you look at it, a Leman Russ looks like a mass-produced piece of machinery, because it is. It's a Leman Russ, isn't it? There's millions upon millions of them. So in that respect, yeah, the infantry could look kind of elite forces like, but the tanks never will. And I'm not a big fan of using something like the not the Taurus, the Taurox as a stand-in or anything, partially because I don't like the treads on the Taurox, and partly because it's still not going to feel like it's properly doing the role of a Leman Russ. If there's any ideas that you've got about what you could do to a Leman Russ to make it look a bit more stealthy, a bit more sleek, then by all means let me know in the comments. That's why I'm making this video. I want to get your thoughts on these different ideas behind this army. I'm not saying that whatever you guys decide I will go with, because it's got to be something that I've got to be happy with myself, but I want to get your thoughts on it, your feelings, your kind of gut reactions to this stuff, because as I've said before, there's plenty of times where, you know, you think you've got your mind made up, you think you've looked at every argument, at everything to do with whatever you're thinking about, but then someone says, oh, have you considered this? And the immediate response is, no, I hadn't, and now I really wish that I had. This is one of those situations. I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 different things, but I want to get your feelings on it, because you might have picked up on something that I've missed. You might know of a particular army that's got the kind of feel that I'm looking for that you could show me, or something like that. You know, you might have an insight that I don't have, which is why I want to get your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings on this. Now, the final one, I'm going to be honest, it's a little bit left field in a way. There'd have to be some serious kind of consideration as to how you'd even work the lore for an army like this, how you'd work the backstory, because on the face of it, it's pure 100% heresy. And I'll be honest, the inspirations for it are not exactly the most unique, original. Essentially, almost like a mix of White Walkers and the dudes from Death Stranding, when Mads Mikkelsen has got his weird tentacle cable things controlling the skeleton troops. For some reason, in the back of my head, I watched the Death Stranding trailer and I was like, that'd be a really cool theme for like a Imperial Guard army, but I don't really know how you'd pull it off. Like the idea of each sergeant having just direct control over his squad, and his squad is basically mindless. You know, I mean, they're literally skeletons in combat gear in the second Death Stranding trailer. How would that even work? And the tank covered in giblets. Not entirely sure I'd go with the giblets, but how would that work lore-wise? How would that work story-wise? Would that make any sense? It's kind of tricky. I mean, servitors are basically people stripped of their personality, their emotions, reprogrammed to do basic tasks. With things like the Mechanicus creating things like the Skitari and stuff like that, I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility for an Imperial Guard army to have support from the Mechanicus, in that if someone falls in battle, they get a couple of implants, they get a cable jack into the back of the skull that is then controlled by the sergeant? It's a bit too close to Dark Mechanicus, really, but on the other hand, it's not something I think I've seen before, and there's certain parts that are really making me lean towards it, which is one of those things where it's like, is this a terrible idea, or could this be kind of cool? So the thing that drew me towards it are these heads, again from Anvil Industry. Now, in my mind, I've got a squad of 10 guys. They've got variations of these heads on them. They're using the Grenadier legs, again from Anvil, for that kind of chunky, bottom half, which I think would suit kind of well. And then along with 9 guys with these heads, full on zombie / skeleton look, you'd have one sergeant with a head that's similar to the gas mask veteran heads, these ones, but with a ballistics helmet instead and the visors, but still with the gas mask. And I'll be honest, it's not just the way the squads look. The potential for making the tanks look cool is kind of above and beyond what I was thinking for like the Elite Forces or the older World War II style. I really like the idea of having tanks that are still mostly standard, but have got bits and pieces here and there that aren't standard. I mean, obviously they'd have to function standard, they'd have to function as Lehman Russes and Chimeras and so on. But if you're pushing the boat out that far with infantry, and if you've got a theme that is that kind of borderline heretical as infantry, then the idea of having tanks that are, that have been messed with, that are still technically what they are, but look a bit different, I kind of like that idea. And in the big old world of 40k, is it that implausible that some tech major somewhere has managed to kind of coerce or persuade or control the Imperial Guard regiments on his world to allow him to improve their combat effectiveness, to make it so that when they lost a man, they hadn't actually lost a man? Is it completely beyond the realm of possibility in a universe like 40k? I don't know that it is, but I don't know whether it's just because I'm looking at that and going, that's so different, and that's so kind of, comparatively speaking, for Imperial Guard armies anyway, so out of left field that I want to try it just because it's so different. Does that mean it's bad? Does that mean it wouldn't work, is the main question. Because the thing is, there's lots of World War II style armies out there. There's quite a few kind of elite forces, special forces style armies out there. I've never seen anything like the idea of essentially an undead Imperial Guard army, because it sounds mental saying it out loud, but there's so much potential for doing interesting and cool things with it. But I don't know whether that's blinding me to it not being a good idea. And of course, how do you swing it in terms of it being a loyalist army? Could you even swing it that way, or would it have to be traitor? Things to consider, things to think about. So what I want to know is, what do you reckon to each of those? Also, I said this is going to be shorter than usual. I've been rasping away for 13 minutes. God damn, I'm terrible at keeping videos short. Anyway, what do you reckon? Which of those ideas do you like the most? Do you like the idea of an older style army? Are there any particularly fine examples that you know of that I could take a look at? Do you like the idea of a special forces army, and what would you do to make the tanks a bit more interesting, to make them a bit less, well, Lehman Russ-like, to try and fit in with the general theme? And what about the left field option? What do you reckon of a essentially undead Imperial Guard army, where the troops are mindless and controlled by their superiors directly? Kind of like the second Death Stranding trailer, where Mads Mikkelsen is controlling a bunch of like skeleton tactical guys. I'd be interested to see what you think. I really would, because this is something where it's going to be a long-term thing, it's going to be long-term investment, it's going to be a long-term project, because everything is going to be converted in some way, everything is going to be kit bashed in some way, nothing is going to be left standard whatsoever. Of course, I'm going to video pretty much everything I can to do with it, because it'll be quality, and stream as much of it as I possibly can as well, but got to take the initial step of deciding what theme to go for. So, what do you think of the themes? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be really interested to hear what you think. And of course, if you have any examples of any of this stuff that you want to share, then again, let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. As always, there's other videos to watch. There's a subscribe button up there. There's also a Patreon button, but as I said in the last video, don't go for that just yet. There's some changes to Patreon's payment system, which I need to make a video about. I intended to do that yesterday, but my voice is horrendous, so I didn't, and I need to be clear, properly clear for that. So yeah, if you want to take a look, you can, but if necessary, hold off. Wouldn't blame you at all. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you, hopefully, tomorrow. Toodaloo.